For my project, I decided to research and collect a handful of careers in the field of psychology that I am most interested in pursuing. I've always known that I wanted to major in psychology, but throughout the years, the careers I dreamed of pursuing through this major have changed various times. I had plenty of career options I favor over others, but until I began this project, I didn't know for certain which path would best suit me and my interests. My goal for this project was to be able to sort through my potential career options and choose one career that I could strive for. Through this, I hoped that settling on one career could help me create a better plan for my future as I furthered my education. Through various research and the comparison of multiple careers that most stood out to me, I was able to decide which career path I was most interested in pursuing. I completed my project first by briefly researching various subfields in psychology that I already had somewhat of an interest in. From here, I limited these subfields to 4 careers that best captured my personal interests. These 4 subfields ended up being psychiatry, clinical psychology, forensic psychology, and correctional psychology. Upon determining which fields I wanted to continue researching, I came up with a set of questions that would aid in helping me compare and contrast each career. The questions I decided upon were: which field makes the most money? How long would I be willing to go to school for? Is this what I'm looking for in a career? Will it be hard for me to find a job in this field? And finally, what were the advantages and disadvantages of these jobs? Once I finalized my questions and knew what I was going to be researching, I came up with 6 categories I would use to compare and contrast my chosen subfields: job description, educational requirements, annual salary, career outlook, as well as the pros and the cons. The first category I decided to research was the description of each of these jobs and what exactly an individual in this field did. All of these jobs are similar in the fact that they help improve the quality of other people's lives through various therapy and the conduction of treatment plans, but they also all have their own unique differences. For example, unlike the other 3 professions, psychiatry requires one to become a licensed medical doctor. Furthermore, an emphasis was placed on spending time working through medication management with patients. Unlike psychiatry and clinical psychology, correctional and forensic psychology focused more on the criminal and legal matters, as well as treatment and rehabilitation. The difference between the two is that while forensic psychologists play a role in things such as custody disputes, insurance claims, providing therapy to crime victims, and working with child and delicate witnesses, correctional psychologists worked closely with inmates and their families to identify clinical disorders, eliminate antisocial behaviors, and conduct treatment plans to rehabilitate inmates back into society upon their release. Out of the 4 of these fields, clinical psychology had the broadest job description and seemed to me to have the most potential. I used orange outlines to indicate the most desirable fields of the 4 within each category, and black outlines to show which fields didn't quite meet my hopes and expectations. In this case, I was least interested in psychiatry as I find the medicinal aspects of treatment unappealing. The second category I chose to research was the educational requirements of each job. I found that psychiatry had the highest education requirements, as a medical degree and residency are needed to become licensed. The degree usually takes minimum of 12 plus years to complete. Clinical forensic and correctional psychology, on the other hand, averages 8 to 12 years to complete the education requirements of either a master's or doctoral degree. In this category, I was once again least interested in psychiatry, as I'm not too keen on the idea of going to medical school and the expenses that come with it. For the third category, I researched the median annual salaries of each of my 4 chosen careers. Psychiatry ranked number 1 in this category, as the median annual salary averaged around $177,000. Although clinical and correctional psychology pays significantly less, they too had a decent annual average salary, while forensic psychology ended up being the lowest income job of the 4, averaging just under $60,000 a year. In this category, forensic psychology was the least appealing potential career to me. The 4th and final category I chose to research was career outlook. Although psychiatry's career outlook was predicted to rise the most at 28%, and clinical psychology was predicted to rise the least at 11%, I do not have a least desirable option in this category, as all 4 careers were predicted to rise in the next few coming years. Last but not least, I chose to research the most notable pros and cons of all 4 subfields. For psychiatry, some unique advantages were that it had the highest earning potential, various self-employment opportunities, and faster than average job growth. On the downside, the educational process is not only highly competitive, but also quite lengthy and likely to result in debt. I found that irregular overtime hours were common in this field and had the potential to be stressful and mentally draining. One fascinating con I hadn't considered prior to researching the STLCC database was the ethical dilemma of prescribing drugs with sometimes questionable curative effects and oftentimes serious side effects. Moving on to the pros and cons of forensic psychology, I discovered that it oftentimes resulted in high degrees of satisfaction at the end of a successful case. Forensic psychology also had quite a high salary for those with experience and a good reputation, and allows individuals to work with a diverse number of employers. Some cons included long hours, high rates of burnout, potentially inadequate salaries, misrepresentation in the media, and sometimes required quickly arranged travel. Next, I looked at the pros and cons of correctional psychology. The pros of this field are similar to the last three, as it allows individuals to help other people transform their lives, but it also aids in creating a safer atmosphere for staff dealing with inmates. A few cons of correctional psychology were that one must complete a certain number of internship hours and work closely with violent offenders. This degree requires a doctoral degree to be fully licensed, but this con is not as negative, as all the fields I've researched thus far also require this. I found that correctional psychology had the least information regarding pros and cons of the 4 careers I researched. Finally, I looked into the pros and cons of clinical psychology. The demand in this field is quickly growing, which means that finding work could be fairly simple. Clinical psychology also offers the option of going into private practice and creating your own personalized work hours. One con of this career is that state licensing is required, meaning if you were to move, you would have to repeat the licensing requirements for the state. Another downside to clinical psychology is that one must be able to cope with the fact that you cannot help everybody. After all the research and thought I put into this project, I finally decided that I was most interested in clinical psychology. Clinical psychology offers a fantastic median annual salary, reasonable educational requirements, has a gradually rising career outlook, and best meets the criteria I am most looking for in a future career. I learned a lot about the subfields of psychology that prior to the project I had not known. Going into this, I believed that I would most likely end up pursuing psychiatry, but upon the completion of my research, I came to the conclusion that I personally found psychiatry to be the least desirable career option. Now that I have a better understanding of the numerous careers in psychology and what I would like to do with my life, I can better plan for my future and look into furthering my education in ways that will best benefit my career goals.